Hello, everyone. Today we have our very special guest, Miss Neha Raka. She's a TED speaker. She completed her MSc in yoga from SVyasa, and she's been teaching yoga since 2005, but she's been practicing yoga much longer than that. And she's also a USA certified yoga teacher, and she also is an expert in pre and prenatal expert, a pranic healer, and a psychotherapist. She's also is a wellness coach and a yoga therapist promoting the holistic living. She's also been a yoga ambassador for India, and she's been with the government of India for about 4 years, and she's traveled all over the world like USA, Mauritius, Nepal, Bahrain, Vietnam, etc. So let's welcome Neha today and share her experiences with us. Hi Neha, welcome to our YouTube channel, Master the Life. So this channel is primarily focusing on people to help themselves to master their own life. So we are very proud to welcome you to this channel today. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, Neha, you do you want to start by introducing about yourself a little bit more than what I have actually compressed everything into a single statement actually.
Thank you so much, first of all, Shubha. Namaste to all, and a real warm welcome I feel here because it's so nice to be here on this platform where people can really connect to the actual journey of yogis, or you can say like practitioners and teachers like us, because this is very important. I feel that people get inspired, and then also with our experience, like if my experience can help others to grow and learn a little more. And I think my life journey is going to be really very interesting for many of them who think yoga is not their cup of tea or it's too boring, because I had this notion long time back as well. So I think, yes, let me elaborate a little about my journey, starting from the childhood. I would take you to my school time when I was, I think, some 7, 8 years old, and I'm from Indore, MP in India, and I was like every other child going into a school, and I was in a very good school which had sports as well as academics. So at that time, it was not very encouraged, but I was really blessed, thanks to my parents, that they put me into a school which had extracurricular activities where I could kind of see where I flow in and which interests me and all those things. So in the school, I was in gymnastics as a little kid, very flexible, very, you can say in Hindi, we say chanchal, very active, very naughty, being everywhere. And that was me. After that, in a year's time, my teacher of yoga in the school, he pulled me into yoga, and he felt that I would be really great in that because of the flexibility I had. And that's why it was really amazing to start that journey at that age. But today, when I look back, I don't think I knew what it all was, because it was too, little for all that to come to me. The only plus point was that I was motivated to compete in competition, because the only thing which we used to do is to go into a competition and win prizes. And that was the best thing, because all I had in my mind was a gold medal. That I want to be the top, I want a gold medal in yoga. And that motivated me to do a lot of postures, do a lot of hard work. I still remember the tears in my eyes when my teacher used to press me into postures, and it would really pain, because the body is flexible, yes, but it still has pain. The pain in a young body is less as compared to the adult, because the flexibility is more, but you still feel it. So I remember him telling me that Neha, count till 100 and you have to pose. I still remember a full split, and I'm sitting with that pose, and he's just pressing my legs to the wall, and he would let me count. And because of the pain, I would miss the number. So I would be like 48, 49, 81, 82, 83. And he'd be like, no, count from one. You did a mistake. And like that, I think I must have counted 2 to 3 times 100, which is what I feel helped me, because now when I go to the traditional text, Hatha Yoga says about holding the posture. It says about finding the comfort in the posture, because Patanjali also describes asanas saying Sthiram Sukham Asanam. So though I was not in Sukh at that time in the posture, but I could get the stability, and I realized that when I used to compete and be on stage, it was a 2 minute holding. So every posture you had to hold for 2 minutes. And I think that was the preparation which he was getting me ready for. In a very different way altogether, yes. But there were a lot of postures. He knew the body alignment so well that he would press in the right postures, right positions, where to hold, where to pull, where to push, because you should know the anatomy, physiology of the body. That tender age, if you're not taking care, you may get injuries, you may get a lot of, pains and aches or muscle pulls and things like that. But I'm so glad that that holding, that old pain came into such a beautiful experience, because 3 consecutive years I was a gold medalist in India,
Wow.
national level champion. So I had almost like a lot of years of that fame and that proud feeling of myself, boosting up my school's name. And that's the time my school also gave me scholarship, because I was really boosting up the name of my school, and good in academics, because my dad only had one rule, that you should get good marks, and then you're allowed to do everything what you like and love. But this is very important. You have to get good marks. So I was just trying to balance, and I think this balancing came from that age, which I didn't even realize it. What today we learn how to balance life in work or in family, or balance in your personal interest and the interest which we do as a responsibility. I think at that little age, very easily, very playfully, I was taught that you have to balance this both. And somehow it was going very beautifully till I reached my ninth grade. And so when I reached ninth grade, that time, some or the other way, I had to be focusing more on my academics, because 10th was board and it was really important. So for that 1 year, I thought of taking a break from my competitions and practice and everything. But unfortunately, I lost like my guru. He went into samadhi, and I never saw him back again, because I lost him as a teacher, as a guidelines, and as a help, you can say, into my this journey. But he had boosted and sowed these seeds very strong and very deep down, I think. So after I had no guidance, I kind of left yoga. I didn't go back in my 11th and 12th grade, because I didn't know what to do, how to do, because he would say and I would do. So he would say and I would do. I would not use my head at all. And I'm sure if I would have used, I wouldn't have been so great, because at that little age, I don't think I had the right mindset to decide and choose things for me. So my education went on. I had throughout PCM, like physics, chemistry, math. So in the science stream, I did my 11th, I did my 12th, and studies were going on. And during the time of 11th and 12th, being me, full of energy, and yoga was not there now with me. So I had to use that excess of energy somewhere. So I went into modeling, and that's really a twist somewhere, because I was really enjoying it, and I would love facing the camera and wearing those beautiful dresses, and
So,
walking on the ramp and getting all the glamour and
so you
a little
also
touch of
you
glamour.
also were in the television as well, isn't it? Doing a lot of serials and things like that, isn't it? So you had a completely different journey altogether way before you started yoga.
Yes, so I think that is the time when it started all, because when I went suddenly into modeling, and how it happened is also a very interesting story, because they say that you enter some, I believe in it personally as well, that whenever you enter and you're shown into a particular direction in life, there is always a bigger intention and purpose. You don't know it there and then, but on a long run, you realize that it was a real important part of your life. Though that part was small enough, but it was very important. So it was my 10th holidays, and I was in Bombay. A lot of relatives lived there, so I was doing just there. And it was a very yearly ritual. Every summer break, we would go to Bombay, Nasik, because I've got family there. And there was shooting going on, and my grandfather's friend was playing a part in it. So my grandfather called me that, okay, there's a shooting, kids, come, you will enjoy the shoot. And I was little, So as a teenager, I was really thrilled to watch a shooting first time in my life. And there is what you say, the stars and the fate, something comes and you are pulled there. And there was a character which was missing in there. And the director was just like, there's only a 2 minute role. She just has to walk by and, give something to the main lead actress. And my grandfather was like, she's never done anything, she doesn't know all this. So he's like, no, we'll just get it done. If her parents are okay, let her, be a part of it. And that's how I was just pulled in. So I just got ready without any knowledge or something. The next day the shoot was there, so they pulled me, and I had just 2 minutes though. I don't even know whether they cut it or they kept it because I never saw the movie. But then I think that changed a lot because when I faced the camera, the different confidence and the different energy inside of me which was coming out was, I think, recognized by these people who are very professional into what they do. They told my parents that you should get her photo shoot done and she should go into, this line because she really has that extrovert talent, and then she has that, ability to deliver the dialogue. She has those expressions. And my mom and dad were like, not sure, but they were like, okay, let's see. So in Bombay itself, because we were staying for a longer duration, we got a photo shoot done. And very famous, renowned photographer, Gautam Rajadhyaksh, I think, if I'm not mistaken with his name. So he did, Mr. Rajadhyaksh did the photo shoot. And then I was just into some small projects, modeling, and then some small ads because I was studying as well, and the condition still remained of my dad. So I was just doing a little bit here and there, but I enjoyed that part a lot.
So
Now, when that
how
was
long did
going
you
on,
do?
it was a long exposure of 2 years.
Oh, 2 years.
So 2 years, I would just go a few days to Delhi, few days to Bombay from Indore because I was studying in Indore. And the school staff and the administration was very nice because my academic results were good. I was a good student. So they would consider a few holidays in between the,
But it's very difficult to come back after spending 2 years in modeling or a cinema industry, isn't it? To come back into a different stream. So how? Because initially yoga chose you when you were at the age of 8, but then later on yoga left, but probably it left some impression within you. So after entering into a new profession altogether, what changed your mind altogether to pick yoga as your profession? Because I could see that you've got a master's in yoga from Yasvyasa, the very popular and famous reputed organization. So which means, we want to understand the journey of how yoga has been chosen by you this time.
I think first also yoga chose me, and the second time also yoga chose me. I'll continue the story from here, how it happened. So while doing these 2 years of my modeling, my TV serials, so I worked for ZTV Rishte serial, I worked for ETV, Sahaj Swasthya came to me from Doordarshan, which is a national TV channel. So Doordarshan had launched a channel called Sports. And the first yoga program they were putting in. And that's when I get a call from Delhi asking that, we have known you from long because you've always been into yoga. Because of my school time, you remember all the outstanding things which I did for 4-5 years, they were in the newspapers. I was called in a lot of places as a guest to, talk about yoga, whatever little child could say, I would say, and I would be like, okay. So I think that news had spread, and plus I was into the media. So that also spread. So these people, they got the best combination of someone who has faced the camera and camera free or friendly, you can say, and also has a lot of flexibility and yoga. So again, yoga chose me because when I get that call, they said that you will get paid and you have to come to Delhi for the shoot, and we will shoot the episodes in 10 days, and one whole month will be shooted in 10 days, and then you can go back. So if you come every month for 1 week or so, we will have a yearly, kind of commitment. And that was a life changing thing for me because I was in my first year of BSc Computer Science, where I had thought of my life to be a BSc Computers, and then I wanted to do MCA, Masters of Computer Application.
Wow, what a different interest. You've got interest in modeling and then computer science. Wow, totally a different globe, isn't it?
I know. I think modeling was just a hobby, you can say. I was doing it for fun,
Oh, I
for
see.
an
Okay.
extra income. I mean,
Okay.
I think pocket money at that age would be very good.
Right.
I don't know. I never thought to take modeling as my career. I was just enjoying that moment of being there. And
Right.
I think that's the best thing my childhood taught me, which is so effortless and easy for me to live in the present moment because I did that as a very young child. So after this, when this offer came, my parents were happy. They were like, and then I was confused to the opposite way because I was like, what would I do of my MCA? Because I want to have a corporate career and I want to be in the, because that time it was a boon. I'm talking about 2000.
Yeah, computer was the hit of the list. Yeah.
Computer, I mean, everybody would just want to become a computer engineer or a computer techie person, I mean. And I also wanted to do that because all my friends were doing it. And I didn't know whether I really love it, but I wasn't sure about taking yoga as in my career or my profession. So I said, okay, as I'm doing my modeling, so this is also a project. So let me just take it like a project, and I will still do my graduation in computer science, and I will still continue with my, what I've thought for myself doing masters in computer application. And so the journey began. 2 years that program was all of it. Morning, 7:30, I would be on TV, and everyone would be, getting the glimpse of yoga, health, and the constant connection with that secret which was relaying. And that really slowly got that little transformation from inside. Because when I was doing my on-site yoga project with this Sudarshan, at the same time I was doing my graduation. So I could see that I was not enjoying it so much. Sitting in front of the computer, learning C++, C sharp language, which I was like trying to mug it up because I was not able to understand. So then from there, we went to the transition from being into yoga, these episodes and these projects which I was doing with the TV. And the other side was my graduation going on, which I was putting a lot of effort into learning computer languages, which I realized while learning that I was not finding it interesting and it was not something which was making me happy. So that was the first time I really felt that something didn't connect to me. And I think that's what I want to put into the picture while I'm talking about my journey. That these glimpses, these reflections, they come in each one of our lives, but we ignore it. We come to know that something is not good or something is nice or somewhere where we really feel good and somewhere we don't feel that well, but we ignore all of it because we think from the mind. We think what is right according to the intellect, according to the situation or circumstances or things like that. But I think it's a really nice thing that somehow I didn't use my brain a lot and I just told my dad somehow that I don't know if I have to do the MCA. I'm confused because I'm not enjoying it. And my dad was already very well connected to me as a person I feel as parents are. So he finally told me that what do you want to do then? It's okay. I don't want you to do something which you're not loving, but what is the option? And there was a full stop for me. I was like, I don't know. Because even then, I didn't feel that yoga could be chosen as a career.
Career. Yeah.
Because at that time, 2000, when I'm talking about 2002, I finished my graduation. And at that time, I didn't know that yoga is something which can be taught. The only yoga I knew is my teacher, as in schools. So I was like, Papa, do you really want your daughter to become a yoga teacher in some school? I mean, don't you think I have more caliber and I can do better in life rather than just because what will be, I was analyzing things that how will be my pay, what will be my lifestyle, how will I grow as a person because there is limitation there. And I didn't know what more it could bring. And there was no Google as such that I could Google and find out details. So, and nobody in my family, my relatives ever knew anything about yoga. So I was completely lost. I took a gap and I did diploma in yoga just to check whether it's something which I connect to from the university in Indore, which is Devi Ahilya Vishwavidyalaya. So that's where the serial which I was doing, the TV project, that gave me that moment of thought, how yoga again came in my life. So as a child, it came, and then again as a young girl, it came again into my life. And then I did this diploma where I realized that I love it because that is the first time I learned more than asanas. So my entire experience about yoga in my school was only physical postures because that's all we were learning. How to do a posture, do it the best, get a prize, and that's it. So nothing more, nothing beyond. But here I learned about the history of yoga, how old it is, where it is coming, and also about the subjects like Patanjali, Yoga Sutras. So that there is a big book about yoga. I didn't even know that there is so much. And it talks about meditation, then it talks about kriyas. I did a lot of kriyas. I still remember the toughest was to eat the cloth. You're eating, which is Vastrudoti.
Sorry, what's that?
So, okay, so there are kriyas. Like you must have heard about Jalneti.
Yeah, Jalneti.
Yeah, so
putting the water through your nostrils.
Yes. So like that, you have another kriya which is kunjal. So you drink water and you vomit.
Yeah.
Right. So there is another kriya which we were to do compulsory because we were learning. Right. So there was a kriya where we would eat a malmal, very soft cloth, which is just just a little inch like this, and a very long one, almost like 20 foot longer, and then you eat it. You swallow it. This is to clean your entire digestive tract. So basically, your food pipe is being cleaned. It's a kriya to cleanse.
But and how do you bring the cloth back again? Oh dear, I've never heard this actually. I knew the other two.
Yeah, so I think we can have a whole, kind of a session on kriyas where there are a lot of kriyas which are there, but we practice only a couple of them when we practice in general. But as a teacher, I think it was important for us to know. And since I have practiced it, so now I have an experience of, how to eat it, how to take it out, and what happens, how you feel before, how you feel while doing it, and how you feel after doing it. So it's like a beautiful process.
Do you still,
that was the most challenging one.
Do you still do it now as well? Like how frequently you do this kriya?
I don't do this kriya now, and I think if we do kunjal and shankha prakshalan very regularly, then this kriya is something which you need not to do regularly. So I've done a couple of times, yes, but that was only during my studies when I was learning. Yes. After that, no. But that process of learning, that was so fascinating. It was so, as a little one's mind, I was always a curious child, wanted to know more, learn more, and I think yoga brought that little pause in my life because there was a lot of newness to it. Plus, there was a lot of depth into the subject because you can go dive in, and every time you dive, you find something new. So it was not boring at all, and something which always made you question, like, why do we have to touch the feet of elders? My mom would tell me, touch the feet. And you have a question in your mind as a child. But these questions were not answered so well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yoga, when I was learning, I got a lot of basic questions like why do we join our palms in the morning looking at the sun? I mean, why are we doing it? So why do we put water into the tulsi or to the sun? We give the earth in the morning. So like these basic things, which I never thought that yoga as a subject had all this also. Basic living, morals. Like yoga, when I was learning, had basic yamas and niyamas. It was teaching you to be in non-violence. It was teaching you to be truthful. It was teaching you non-stealing. So the basic principles and values, which as an Indian or as a Hindu child I was brought, they were all logically explained to me. They were all elaborated in the depth.
That's really nice. Yeah. So when you say you have to hold your palms together and do Surya Namaskar in the morning as soon as you wake up, that's the first warm-up exercise. So that's actually to worship, the sun as a god, because without sun, there is no microorganisms that can live in the world. Is that the reason for it, or is it something more than that?
There is a little more to it. Like imagine, first, most important reason is what you have mentioned, that it is to say our thank you, just simple, it's gratitude, that I'm so grateful for you to come, because you have been there as a life force into the whole world, the entire earth.
I learned the life force of missing the sun in this climate in the UK. After coming to UK, I miss Indian weather so badly, because without sun, your body is not the same. Trust me, I've been living here the last 12 years now, and totally, when you're in India, you get the sun and the life force. It's entirely different to what you see here, because the sun rays, even if you get sun, it's not going to be the same as you get it in a different height of the equator. So obviously, sun is the vital. I understood sun is a very important god now, more than anything. And moreover, being in this atmosphere, being in this space, actually, you need to thank the universe, for this. So that's the main thing, isn't it? So is there anything else that you do this Surya Namaskar as a first thing in the morning?
Yes, I think it's more importantly, as I was saying about your gratitude, that you want to show your gratitude towards the sun. Considering God is a very different element altogether, because we consider God to an entity which is more powerful than us. I mean, there are things which we can't do, or it's not in our hands. But there is an entity, we call it an energy. That energy is taking care of these things.
Yeah.
So, as we consider God, yes, but for those who don't believe in as sun as a god, I would say don't consider as God, but at least you know that because of that you are there, or everything around you is there.
I think now people understand God is not a physical entity or a idol worship anymore. It's a universal presence. It's a life force energy. So I think God means, what we really mean is the life force energy. It's not the physical entity like how we used to believe in the olden days. I think that has been changed now quite a lot, and people are very well matured enough to understand we are a part of God, or we are the God itself, and we are a part of this universal energy, isn't it?
And it's very important to understand this, because if you don't realize that, and now after realizing, you have a choice of considering that as God, or it's okay, don't consider as God, but at least respect the identity of that power.
Yeah.
That is there, that uniqueness of that. It can be air, it can be water. We worship Ganga. Ganga is nothing but the only biggest stream of water coming right from the mountains, which gives water to the maximum nation. So now we consider it as God, because we want to show that miraculous gratitude towards that power.
Yeah.
Now, understanding the energy is important. What you choose to do it, that's your choice. But gratitude is a word which I feel should be a part of your life from the morning till the night. I mean, it is something you should be grateful for the air you're breathing in. And that's
Exactly.
where pranayama came into the picture when I love water. So when I used to swim, the only thing important for you is the air, because if you don't have the air, you will drown. But that magical learning of controlling the air was taught in the yoga classes of pranayama, and how it helped me doing my swimming, doing my snorkeling, going underwater, diving, everything. So, how you relate these practices, what we learn today as in yoga, is nothing but a way of life which you can use everywhere. When you're talking, when you are driving, when you're cooking, basically everywhere, somehow it connects. And I think that was something which fascinated me to be, connected to it. And that happened in that 1 year of diploma course which I did. And coming back here to the salutation, yes, the namaskar itself, joining your palms, you're trying to connect all the energies of the right and the left, which is your balance of the body.
Balance.
There are acupressure points
Yeah.
which you join that stimulates. So there are a lot of reasons, and all those reasons are very very in depth, and they are very scientific today. You can read about them, you can see the research on them, and you can understand the logic behind it. But the best part is for people like us who are born and brought up there, in that vast divine culture, in that strong ancestral, or you can say traditional concepts and knowledge, I think we should respect it first before we are, trying to get attracted and deviated and diverted
That's
into
true. Yeah.
other parts of the world, which is happening so much around us. If you see, we are losing that route, and we are trying to just go everywhere, you know, which is one reason yoga is the need of today. It's the need. It's not your luxury anymore,
Yeah.
but it
That's
is
true.
something which is basic.
Yeah, it's like brushing your teeth is what I keep saying to people now. So without yoga, I cannot begin my day. The day is not the same without yoga anymore.
Okay. But that's how yoga should be a way of life. It's not just a part of your life,
Yeah.
like not one part.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah.
It's how you connect to people, how acceptance you have, how you can accept whatever comes to you, how you can live in the present moment, as I was mentioning before. So how you can take life as it comes and make the most of it. So
So
if you see right now the journey I have shared, I have actually made the most of what I got.
yeah.
When I was in yoga, I was doing the best I could do. When I was into modeling, I did my best into what I could do. And I was not holding on to them. So once it's gone, it's gone. Think of the next. What's there today? So I think that's very important that we should learn that attitude to accept what comes to us and make the most out of that. Because if you can do that, I think there's no better secret of happiness then. Because you'll be happy in that moment.
So you enjoyed that 1 year of diploma course where you realized that yoga is what is your passion and that's what you find your happiness and everything. So you chose the career as yoga then.
That is the time when I was sure that I want to know more about this now. Diploma was less. Now I want to dive in. So it's like, I saw the trailer of the movie and I was sure I want to watch the
Watch
movie.
movie, yeah. Because it's yoga is nothing but, it's a lifestyle, isn't it? So we know from Patanjali Yoga Sutras that it talks about every aspects of a human being in that booklet. So if you refer to that, it's not something, it's a book to just read and digest and go. It's not something like that. It's every single sutra is a fact that you need to understand, practice, and live. So even if you understand just one sutra, that's just enough. But if you can live with that sutra, is what is my understanding. So yeah, yoga is something which is our lifestyle. So when you have learned what's the real yoga from through a course, maybe that helped you to understand, oh, this is not something that I initially thought. This is something more than what I really thought. And this can, you never thought about money or the profession or anything like that with this. And this time you just lived with the subject and you just enjoyed the subject and just chose the subject as your career.
Yeah, I mean, even at that time, Shubha, I don't think I was ready to think about career. I was so happy and fascinated by the subject itself that I just wanted to experience and know more.
Yeah.
I think I was just too curious and too much into knowing and learning into the depth. Because as a young girl, I had already seen the fast and the glamour and the starry feel. Now here I was getting more grounding,
Yeah.
more bass, more subtleness. So it was attractive. It was pulling me somehow. There was something which pulled me, and that's when I wanted to go and find a place where I can learn more. So I talked to my teachers there, and I wanted to know. So someone said Bihar School of Yoga is the best. There were only a few schools at that time. Very namely, I mean, you can count on your fingers. Today there are lakhs of them,
Plenty. Yeah.
but that time it was really very less. So I learned through the Iyengar style because, as I mentioned, that my teacher was an Iyengar. Like he practiced with all the props, with the ropes, and things like that, pushing, pulling, and using the muscles, holding the postures. So I had a little familiar feel to my muscles and my body with the practice, but I didn't know the baseline of it. And this new course now, the diploma, had opened up a lot of, I mean, sectors for me. So now I have to really go deeper. Then I started traveling. So I didn't know how else to know which is the best. So I traveled to Bombay. I went to, the school, the Santa Cruz school, the yoga school. And then I went to Delhi for the Moraji Desai. Then I went to Bihar. To my mother said no completely for Bihar because there was a very, different angle Bihar was looked at as a state. So she said no. And then the other schools had a very lesser curriculum structure. According to me, it is very personal actually. So I'm not comparing the schools. Every school is beautiful and the teachings are amazing. The teachers, I'm sure, are great. Even now, when I have kind of met many of them now, if I see today. But at that time, S. Vyasa, when I went to Bangalore and I stayed there, the energy was mesmerizing. It was just amazing. Teachers, the gurus there, those who were teaching you, they had so much selflessness towards the teaching. The entire ambience was a very ashram style. So we would sleep on the floor, we would sit on the floor to eat. We had a very simple dressing, same for all, girls who separate, boys who separate. And I come from a co-ed school, from a city, worked in a very different area and sector, and then suddenly into this sattvic environment. So I can really say, from a rajasic environment, I entered a sattvic environment. And that really made me slow down. And I was so fascinated that I wanted to experience. My mom's comment, I still remember, she keeps telling me even today that I really doubted you that you would survive there.
Right.
So she was like, Neha, you will come back in a few months. I'm very sure about it. You will not be able to live, the life because in the house I was always like, pampered. The food is of my choice. As a child, you're always, given the best by your parents.
Yeah.
Mom would cook all what I loved, and there I had to change very much because being a North Indian going into South India, rice was not my meal. But there I had 3 times rice, and first time in my life I must have had rasam in my experience. So I never knew how could somebody eat rice with water. I mean, it's literally water. And
I think you need to, yeah, because rasam is something even I don't like to eat with rice. I just drink it. There are a lot of people who can't eat too much food. They just drink rasam. Rasam is nothing but it's like a soup with tomatoes and peppers. That's it. So, but people
how
who
I could
needed more volume of food or calories, probably they eat it with rice as well. But you don't have to. The idea is to make your food digest very well. So you just need the tomatoes and pepper in some form. So people who can't eat more rice can just drink rasam at the end of your meal. So that helps your digestion to happen very quicker and faster and aids, a good health and gut actually. So I understand.
but it's because for me that transition was very difficult in the
Difficult. No, I
beginning. But
totally
today, if you
understand.
see, my
Yeah.
parents know that I'm a half South Indian and a half North Indian because I love my aloo parathas and chapatis and all. But I love my idli dosa, and I really make I
Wow.
make good rasam as well because for me it's like a soup, and I drink it as you were saying because
Yeah.
I started doing that there, and till date I have taken that as a part of my meal.
Yeah.
So I do it, and now my family loves the sambar and rasam when I make it.
Right. Nice. Nice.
Because I stayed in Bangalore for 10 years.
Right. Okay. So after your yoga from SPSA, you continued to stay there.
Yes,
Okay.
so that's how I was
Okay.
10 years there.
All
So
right.
I was more into, cooking and eating and adapting those good things which I could get from there and mixing both, both in a very beautiful mixture of
Yeah.
South and
Yeah.
North food. And we, the Indians being good foodies, I think we really need to understand that the best is there everywhere. You just
Yeah.
need to understand where and when to eat what.
Yeah.
I mean, when you want a light belly, you can eat some idli or you can have some upma or some, curd rice, which really keeps you a little lighter. We eat dalia in the north, like, the dalia with little veggies and all. It's same like porridge,
Okay.
but it's not sweet, but it's like a salty
Okay.
one. So, I just did that little mix and match and I love that. Nowadays, I even take diet, recipes and I share these healthy recipes with my students. I take a session on healthy living and healthy cooking because I have done a lot of cooking in my life for myself and I was all by myself in so many different corners of the world.
That's
So I
nice.
think that is where I learned so much more, not just food, but to mix in the cultural difference, the language difference, then getting the knowledge of the scriptures through the teachers in the story forms, and then chanting the Sanskrit mantras, which really is so amazing that you would not realize it when you don't even know the meaning. But only the chant of Bhagavad Gita, like the Raj Yoga Shloka Sangraha or Karma Yoga Shloka Sangraha from the Gita, we were reciting them just without even knowing for the first few weeks. But it just gave so much immense peace and understanding to the core that it bounded, it kind of bounded you into yourself and it didn't bind you with other external things. So it's connecting to yourself but not depending on other factors for it.
So you
This
said
was
that
so
without
beautiful.
understanding the meaning, you chanted those mantras. I know the sound itself brings in a lot of vibrations and reverberations in our body, which is very, very good. But do you think knowing the meanings is also very important in that process? Or,
Of course, yes, because then later on we were taught the meaning. And then we were taught the entire Bhagavad Gita.
right,
So now, like, I even take these courses, I teach people how to use that Gita in your life.
right,
It's not about just knowing the Gita. Many people know what Gita talks. But have you adapted those teachings in your life? Have you actually put them in a form where you really need them?
yeah,
So there are a lot of things which we can learn about attachment, about detachment, about vairag. There are a lot of things which people know the concepts, but when it comes to us, we are like, but I don't think it comes to me right now because I'm still in the worldly life. I'm still living a material life. I still have a family. How can I work with this? So right now, the idea is not to just literally know it, but it is to know and to implement and to put that into your life. How you can work with that non attached form and still get all the benefits of you today, doing your responsibilities and duties. So, your responsibility as a husband or a wife or as a child is there, you have to do them. But at the same time, you can still be spiritual. You can still be non attached to the fact that you are holding as an emotion. So, we are not talking about detaching from people. We are talking about detaching from the emotion which is holding you to that person. And it's beautiful because now you know the meaning. and now you can implement it in your life.
Because we all think that, when they talk about spirituality and detachment, we all think we should leave everything and just go to the forest and live a life. That's what we all have been taught. But it's a very nice thing that you've identified and highlighted the fact that it's about detachment of the materials and the emotions of the things or of the person, rather than the detachment itself, which is pretty good to know, because not everybody wants to leave the world and go and live in a forest. So we all have to understand the depth of the meaning. So it has to be really understood in a way that we appreciate yoga and make it as a part of life, isn't it? So you said you teach Bhagavad Gita. So what kind of teaching is that? Like, how do you teach Bhagavad Gita? And like, can you explain the structure of that, please?
So basically, it's about the concepts. So like Mitahar. Mitahar is there in Gita. It talks about your diet, how the food should be when you eat. So it's not that you many people would just read and chant. It's very nice if you can go the Sanskrit chanting, meaning and everything about the Gita. But a lot of people get so stuck into that complication that they are not able to take the best out of it. So I just try to put those complex things into a simpler form for them, and I tell them, okay, this particular diet thing has come from Gita. What Gita talks about diet is this. So now why don't you try this diet plan? Or it's like about, you were talking about the detachment, leaving the society. Gita talks about the 4 ashrams. The brahmacharya, the grahastha ashram, the vanaprastha, the sannyas. It talks about that. It explains you what it is all about. So it doesn't say leave the grahastha. It says that be in the grahastha ashram, what are the things you should do? And how you transit from grahastha to vanaprastha. Today, after a certain age, you don't transit. Parents get so attached to the kids, and then now the grandkids. The grandchildren are also there. So now they're not able to let go. So your grahastha ashram is over. Now it's time to go introspecting. Now it's time to learn. Now it's time to read, gain more knowledge. But at that age, you will see they are more dependent on kids. They are more dependent on the grandkids, the attachment, the love. They're still into their life a lot. So, there is a learning which we can take from it and we can implement it in our life. We still live with the family, still the grandparents and the kids and the grandchildren, everybody living together. But at the same time, you have your own space created where you're growing as an individual, because the journey is individual. It's not group. Your journey is as solo. So how much ever you bring your tree larger, the branches are growing. But you should know that your journey has to connect with yourself. And now you have done your karma and your dharma as a parent. You have done that. Now the next step. And then you go to him. So Krishna says that you come to me, and then you find that path to me. So that's your spiritual journey, which has to begin at a certain time. But that is what, the courses are basically about. Karma Yoga. I teach Raj Yoga. I teach the Gyan Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, how it comes from Bhagavad Gita. How in Gita, Krishna says that just surrender. Complete devotion and surrender to me, and I will take you along with me. But today we doubt even God. So even that is doubted. There also we go with a business deal, if you do this, then I will give you 2 coconuts or 1 kg of sweet, or, it's like very different the way we are taking things today. So most of my discourses are very simple, in a very simple language, keeping in mind the depth and the deep ingredient and knowledge of the traditional scriptures. So I haven't changed anything from there. But I have just changed the way I present it. So basically, it's the same curry, presented in a very different garnishing has changed, you can say, and the dish has, the container has changed. But the dish remains, the recipe remains the same.
Okay, yeah, I totally understand. It's an authentic recipe, but just presented in a 5-star way.
Very beautifully said, yes. So I give this example to the parents when I take these kids' classes and parents come and tell me, my kid doesn't eat this, my child is so fussy, she doesn't eat vegetables. And I always tell them the idea is to feed them vegetables. It's not that it has to go in the vegetable form.
Yeah.
You roll it in paratha, you make a soup out of it, you do things, you bring in that variety for them to, for their taste, for their level, for their options. But you keep the basic ingredients same.
Yeah.
That spinach has to go in their diet and spinach will reach there. But maybe I'll not give them a spinach curry, but I will give them a spinach roll with a little cheese on the top of it.
Yeah.
So I think even yoga now is very important that it goes into this format, that it needs to be authentic, very, very true as it is. I mean, no changes to what it is. But presented and made it easier for people to take it. But the problem has come in the last few years, I have noticed that in the form of changing and making it easier, they have actually changed the recipe itself.
Right.
There are a lot of yoga teachers worldwide who are trying to, I can say the word, sell yoga in a very different way than it was. So now I'm not talking about that change. That's why we really want to keep the traditional and authenticity of the yogic text, the knowledge as it is. But we want everybody should read. So suppose you can't go into the Sanskrit terms and the books which are very difficult, heavy, you might not have time for it. But if I tell you that I'm going to take the diet plan according to Bhagavad Gita, which will help you to live a healthy life, I think that would connect to you. You may want to take that little bit of it and then follow. Similarly, if I tell people that not everybody wants to go a Dhyan or the Raj Yoga way, someone wants to just say that no, I do my actions, I don't hurt people, I don't do any harm to anyone, and that's my way of living life. So I would say, okay, amazing. There is a path called Karma Yoga. You become a Karma Yogi. You don't have to do meditation here now. You just have to be good, do good, and serve selflessly to the society. Don't put your selfish objective into the task. Every task you do, surrender that task to divinity. That the divinity in you is what the divinity in me sees. Yeah. And because I see that divinity in you, I just surrender.
So yoga is there for everyone basically. So you tailor make the yoga for everybody's needs and desires, how they want to take yoga into their life personally. Yeah. That's nice to know. So how was your journey in Yesvyasa? So how different is that institute compared to the other places, and, I know you have traveled a lot to identify the right university and finally you chose Yesvyasa. So, what are the outcomes, from being a student out from Yesvyasa, and how that experience helped you to step into the next ladder of your career?
I think Yesvyasa's experience that time was amazing because it had a very, as I said, sattvic and a very ashram lifestyle, proper, authentic, real teaching which were given to us. And not only we were given the teachings in that way, we were also living in that lifestyle. So our food was controlled in a sattvic way. We got a sattvic diet, and then we lived in that atmosphere. So the teachings which were coming theoretical became more easier to adapt and understand because we were living it. And that's the beauty of it. And now I can say a lot of institutes, like one of my favorite, of course, is the Bihar School of Yoga, which is also a very amazing institute which has the ashram layout and ambience and the system. They still follow that. And there are very few now in India also which actually has that setup of sattvic living. Now they are mostly institutes which have become universities and campuses. So even Yesvyasa today is not the same which I would say was 15 years back.
Right.
So if you're asking me, how is it today? It's today like a beautiful campus a university of yoga.
Right.
But
Okay.
earlier it was a yoga ashram.
Ashram.
That's the only difference I can kind of make today. But I think it's also changed with time because of the requirement. They say that the demand always tempers the supply.
Right.
So
Okay.
when the demand started coming of certain things, I think the supply also somehow started kind of changing.
Yeah.
We say change is inevitable. So I think this change was to happen. But for me, I think I was really blessed. I find myself really lucky that I had that experience in a very, very traditional and an authentic way, the lifestyle. And that brought the beautiful mixture of my Western and Indian, you can say, the lifestyle, which I was living. So I had a very exposed mind and self to the outer extrovert world. And here I had a very, very depth and deeper connection to the intro or the internal world of mine, which I could learn. So that beauty came out very naturally and effortlessly in this atmosphere and ambience. After 2005, finishing my master's degree from SPIASA, I served there in the Arogya Dhama for a few months, working with the participants. We call them participants, not patients, but they were all people who were suffering from various ailments and diseases. And they had some had back pain and spondylitis, cervical. Some were depression patients, anxiety people, GID, gastrointestinal disorders, arthritis. So there were sections, and we were all distributed in those sections where we were doing a lot of therapy-oriented,
Yeah.
practices, teaching them. So this was again a very very different era and part of my life, which opened a very different option, or you can say a scenario for me, where I understood that it is not just to take care of your body; it's a precautionary measure, yes, but yoga can also be a cure.
Yeah.
So, from a precautionary measure, it went to a cure. And that transition, when I saw people smiling, when I saw people healing, and when they go back from that place, the happiness of their families who come to take them, that, okay, you came sick and now you go healthy. That is what put me into this field of, even today when I take a lot of therapy sessions, there are maximum people who come one-on-one sessions, which are a lot of and problems with their body, and especially these days, the mind is also tricking a lot. So stress-prone diseases are a lot if you see around, and de-stressing programs or stress. What do you say? Those where you really want people to not just feel connected with the outer world but also connect to their inner world, and that is so much important. That's how I brought this mixture of yoga and healing and therapy and the meditation and everything together in the form of retreats, which you see a lot today, which are happening. So the workshops turned into retreats. When I traveled around, I started teaching people just to live life in this holistic way. So
That's
a little
nice.
bit of pranayam in it, little bit of asanas in that, little bit of healthy lifestyle with healthy diet in it, little bit of meditation, self contemplation, which we call as swadhyaya. You need that. So this all started coming up together in the form, and that's when I created Iti Yoga. The one
Yeah.
brand which I. So it's an integral transformation of an individual. So
Wow.
ITI
Very lovely
bio.
name. The name is
Yeah.
formed
So
very well, actually. Yeah.
yeah. So it took me 6 years of my practice in Bangalore teaching people in a lot of ways. I mean, I was doing sessions in the gyms, I was doing in the personal one-on-one sessions, I was taking community yoga classes, and a lot of things I did in 6 years of time in Bangalore, 6, 7 years. And then finally in 2011, 12, I was like, I have to start this as a project, and this has to reach to people who are thinking yoga is for old people, or yoga is after retirement, or yoga is only if you want to go into the spiritual world. I mean, people didn't realize that yoga is for all, at all age groups. And you can bring in the fun part from it. You can bring in the excitement, the adventure part in it. You can bring in a lot of ingredients into this
Exactly.
recipe.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just that we need to understand the needs of the people and their age, etc., so that we can tailor make it to their needs. Because yoga is a lifestyle, so it suits everybody from a child to a old person. It doesn't matter how old are you, isn't it? So yeah, it just needs that understanding of your participant and then giving what they actually needed. Rather, it's not a one thing which can suit everybody, isn't it?
so you're very right, Shubha. Like yoga is always a part of people's life, and it should be taken in that way, rather than some particular hobby or a sport or something which people do for an hour or so. So it's something which is a way of life. And thinking about this is how Iti Yoga came in, and it's a Sanskrit word. So I really wanted something very authentic, very rooted, so that people understand that you get a flavor which is different, but the ingredients, the basic recipe remains the same. So iti it has a lot of meanings in Sanskrit, and the main important aspect which I took is the upkrama and the samhara from that. So upkrama is like the start, and then the upsamhara is about the end. When we talk about the start, we say that here is the start of a new life, because when yoga comes in your life really becomes better, and the end of all the stress and pain and illness and all of that which you are living with today. So we can see this all around us. If you see, even a child has stress today. Children were never supposed to know what stress means, but today they all know what stress is, because they are feeling it. They are being exposed to that kind of an atmosphere, and they keep listening to everybody saying, I'm in stress, I'm in stress, there's so much stress. So even I feel there are people who say these things in front of kids. Sometimes the kids don't know what it is all about, but they have started listening and adapting to that energy. And then they become very used to that kind of a pressure, that kind of a vibration which they are living in. And I think when yoga comes in your life, it just brings in this situation that you have a choice of choosing how to respond to it rather than reacting to it. And that's what the whole purpose of bringing all this together as a holistic lifestyle was. And until today, I'm very glad that I'm able to connect to people worldwide now and tell them a very simple lifestyle, which is very yogic, which is very holistic, but at the same time, keeping their routine, keeping their basics, keeping their interest intact. So you can still have a very beautiful family life, but you can be spiritual. You can still have your career, your prospects, your goals, your visions. You can be ambitious. You want something in your life, you can establish that. But at the same time, use the karma philosophy so that you're not greedy, you're not needy, but you know that whatever is coming, I'm very happy. I want more, okay. But if I don't get more, I don't get disappointed, broken, and I use wrong ways and means to get more. So some ethics, some values, some principles can be intact in all the ways you want to grow and prosper in life. So whether it's your physical, your mental, your emotional, your financial, in every aspect, you need this content of spiritual essence in your life. I feel yoga is that thing which binds everything together, as the word says, huge. And it not just binds you to the outer, society or outer people, but it also binds you first to your core. At least you will know what your core basic values and principles are. Because sometimes people don't know, they just follow blindly. So if you ask someone, what do you like? It's like basically they say what is in trend or what is the majority of the people doing. So that's right. Sometimes they don't even see and know their own self that, okay, do I really want to do this, or it's because everybody is doing it, so I'm also doing it? Am I just following something blindly, or am I choosing to follow something with a conscious mind? I think these little things matter a lot. So that's how this is come up, and this is still going on. So though I had a little, I think, a pause in between, because as I was telling you that there was a travel which was written, which had to come. So that happened when 2015. We all were chosen and picked up, from the entire country when Modi ji went to US and he declared as Yoga Day is coming up. And now every year we will have a celebration on 21st of June. So when he came back in India, there was a bit kind of halchal, as they say, that there's some things are moving around in the terms of yogic world. And that movement was a very beautiful movement, because somehow this thing also was not me who chose it, but yoga who chose me, or even the travel was chosen from outside. Because this ad came in a newspaper, and my dad called me up and he was like, Neha, there's a very good opportunity. Government is looking for good yoga teachers and professionals who can travel around the world and teach, and promote this holistic living and our traditional system. And I was like, Papa, I'm so well settled in Bangalore and everything was smooth. I was in my little comfort zone. So I was definitely not in a mood to break that comfort zone and, take that change, because that change was with a lot of things. It was not something which I was used to. But I think it was written. And I always believe in going with the flow. So I did that. After me saying no, my father still felt that it is very nice. So he filled the form and he kind of put it into the mailbox, and it went. And finally, I get a letter of the written exam to go to Delhi. I'm like, oh my God, I have to go and write a paper
Oh
now.
God. So you have exam selection process for this.
It was tough because we had a written exam, then we had a practical kind of an interview, and then we had a proper interview with
Oh.
7 to 8 people sitting in front of you, and they all are like the masters in yoga, so called all the gurus from all the amazing colleges. I mean, today, if you say Bihar School of Yoga, Keval Lidham, S. Vyasa, Morarji Desai, all the big people who were sitting there,
So
and
how did you,
Bharat Yoga.
what characters or what thing that you think would have been with you to make the selection process a huge success for you to be selected as one of the ambassador for India?
I think this is a little tough question for me to answer, Shubha. I think the other people know it better why they selected me, because I'll tell you the fact. The truth is, when I finished all the 3 rounds, I called my dad, and I remember I was sitting in a metro going back home, and I told Papa, I don't think I'm getting through it, because there were so many people. There were thousands of them. And they have to select only 35 of them.
Wow.
So the kind of it was like something, and I could see so many people know so much about yoga, like the scriptures, the knowledge, the practice. I think that it was a place where I could see a lot of people in the same field, and I felt very nice because I could see myself that I know a lot, but there is a lot which I need to know more. So that was my kind of a reflection which I could see in that entire process. But the best part, I think, what I feel was my strength was, again, my past, which really helped me. That I was very open, I was very expressive. My language command over Hindi and English was quite good. Plus, I was a yoga practitioner more than just a teacher.
You
So
practiced
I
from
had
the age of
practiced.
8, don't you?
Yes. So my postures were very, profound. I mean, even if I don't know it to the extreme, but they were very clear and profound what I know. So the way I would go and the way I could come, and plus theoretical knowledge, because I had so much passion and love for it. So whatever I knew, I know the best. But what I don't know, of course, I need to learn and know more. But if I know something, it is something which I have understood well, which I have
Yeah.
followed well, and I'm trying to
That is
teach
very
well.
true. No one in
I
the world can ever say that I know everything, isn't it? Nobody can know everything. It's such a huge things to learn. And if you're saying that you have known everything, then you must be only the God.
very well said. I always tell this to my students also, that yoga is like a deep ocean.
Yeah.
Every time you dive in, you get something new out of it. It is never the same thing which you experience. Even the same sutra or the same shloka from a book, if you read it, the same page you're reading, you will feel it is giving you something more than what it gave you last time. And I
That's
have
true.
this, feeling that every time you read a page, even if you have read it before, it will always give you more. Every class I teach, even today when I take lessons like teaching, I feel every class teaches me to be a better teacher. Every
That is true.
student is a different student. So that's, I think, very important to understand that life itself is like a learning going on. And you always keep learning as you grow. But that doesn't stop you from sharing what you know. So that's what I followed. I tried to share what I know. Maybe it is little, but that little can be shared. And then every day you grow, you learn a little more. So your stock keeps increasing. So that's how I got selected. And then finally I was called. They posted me. My first posting was Vietnam.
Wow. Beautiful country.
So, yes, but I wasn't again so, I mean, so open to go there and look up to that, because I was like, I don't know the language, right? So I was just thinking about going there was exciting and I was looking forward to everything. But when you want to teach something, as a teacher, you always want to connect to people directly. And I had that feeling inside that if I teach and there is somebody else translating it, I don't think the
It's
energy will
not
be
the
the
same.
same.
No, that's very true. Yeah.
I felt that, and that was the resistance which I created. I'm like, no. I requested them that please send me to a place where there is English. They're like, no, you don't have a choice. Either you pick this or you don't go. I mean, it was like they chose who will go where.
Right.
I was like, okay, then, whatever comes, let me just go and see. And it was really amazing experience. I can't tell you in terms of yoga, yes, teaching, definitely yes. But as personally, it helped me grow in a lot of ways. How to work with a diplomat, space and conditions, and how to work and talk, how much to say where. Like, I mean, there's a lot of protocols you have when you're with government. There's a training which was given to us for 3 days to 4 days where we were taught how to face the news channels, how to face the reporters, how to, what to talk, what not to talk, because your one statement could bring two countries into
Yeah.
conflict.
Yeah.
So, you don't see it when you're talking, like I'm talking to you, you're somewhere else, and so I can say anything and about anything, and I'm like, okay, it will just remain. But when you talk there, it goes worldwide. It becomes a big thing. So your casual comments or your talks might not be very happy or peaceful in terms of when two nations are involved. So I think that was something I really grew up with a lot of, understanding, and I learned through the way. And
What was the response from the people who listened to your yoga teaching in Vietnam? Was it very receptive? Were they very keen to know what yoga is
we
basically?
Yes, they practice yoga much, much before, because they come from a very flexible background,
Right.
and they have gymnastics and all those things from the very little age of kids. So yoga was also very well accepted and very loved. I mean, I had so many people. There are a couple of pictures actually which are there on my social media, portals also, that there were hundreds and thousands of people. On Yoga Day, we had a stadium full of practitioners, those who came there to celebrate the Yoga Day. And that was the first Yoga Day entire world. So I was so happy and thrilled because it was a house full of students who want to do yoga, promote yoga, and who loved it. The synchronicity, because we did a practice, the protocol which we were supposed to perform, it was all so beautiful. And the people there were very receptive, because I wasn't able to talk in their language, so we had a translator. But she was so nice to connect as much as possible. And I felt the connection, which was my resistance, that I might not able to touch the hearts of people. I might not be able to reach to them because there's somebody else in between. But I think I can give credit to the person who was translating. Plus, I think yoga goes beyond language. I realized it that day that you don't have to know the language to teach yoga. You just need to know what you know about the subject and a pure heart to share. I was so much into giving, I was so much into sharing that I was making 200% effort that they will understand, by doing the postures, by explaining, by putting in my expressions, my energy, and my, vibrations into the practices in the classes. That I think people understood the translation, plus they could see me and feel my energy directly. So combination of both really worked well, and we had a very good, event of Yoga Day. And plus, then I stayed there for a few more weeks. And that entire process, when the next posting happened to Mauritius, I was quite open and flexible by now because I was trained. The first one has trained you, and now you put me into any country. I was like, okay, I'm ready for it. I'm open for it. And that opened another chapter of my life when I was exposed to a very, very vast, I can say, a spectrum of people, because there yoga was not just a physical aspect. In Mauritius, we had courses, like we had certificate course, we had advanced diploma, we had diploma course. So it was a curriculum now. So I was not just teaching a practice class of asana, pranayama, or meditation, but I was also teaching them theory. So I was teaching them the basics of yoga. I was teaching them the 4 streams of yoga, the definitions of yoga, the history of yoga, Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And that was amazing because people were so receptive. They wanted to know more now because for them, yoga was very physical. Now it was changing into a lifestyle. And slowly they thought it has to be a part of their life, not just something which they come for 1 hour session. And then people started giving exams, and then there were attendance which increased, and love, unbelievable. When you say that you give 10% and the universe gives you 100% back, I think I am a living example. Whatever I gave, I think I had no expectations about receiving. So when I received from my students, it was unbelievably beautiful and exponentially more. So they all were so grateful about this thing to come to them in such a pure and real form. There was nothing which was a myth or a misunderstanding or a confusion in their heads, because I was trying my best to answer their questions and their doubts which they had about this particular subject. And plus, we had a lot of guests coming from India, as in to talk about the culture or to talk about the traditions. And the Indian culture was really promoted. We had dance, like the cultural traditional dance forms. We also had music, singing, as well as instruments. And we had yoga. So there were 4 classes going on in the same campus. A beautiful campus with a very good, family atmosphere of all the people working there. Plus, people outside were so receptive and so good that they accepted all of us like a family, which was a very, very good part of it. And that place, after staying there for almost 2.5 years, when I returned back now, this journey became from 2015 to 2018.
Okay.
So almost 4 years of my tenure with the government got over, and I came back to India in 2018. So when I came to India, in that few years, last 2 years of 18 and 19, I think, those were the times I also traveled in other countries like Nepal, I went, Maldives, I went, and I went to Bahrain. And these places, I went on my own, not with the government, but now it had opened a spectrum for me. I could see that I can connect to people irrespective of the place, religion, caste, or language they speak. So I had confidence in myself that now I don't have to limit myself into, some box. I kind of moved out of that box, and which was a very good feeling, because now there were more people who could connect to me and get this knowledge, because people outside were really keen. Like there was a group of French people who were in Nepal, and we did a teachers training course. So I was doing the teachers training course there, and I was teaching them all these subjects and how they would become good teachers, because they were all going to become teachers. So they would get certificates, and then they will be eligible to teach. So, which for me was very difficult to accept, because coming from a very traditional background, it took me almost a couple of months to think about it, whether to teach in 2 months or 1 month's time. 1 month to 2 months is the period when we train them, we teach them. But then I realized that, anyways, these people are so keen to know and they want to become. So maybe if they go somewhere else and get some wrong knowledge, it's better that I pour in my 100% and expose them to the right path of yoga. And maybe in their journey, they will end up into the traditional format. So you can't change the entire world, how it is going on in the terms of yoga. But I thought I can play a part into it by changing at least few yoga teachers' perspective towards yoga, as in the
So
practice.
how many months was the teacher training course?
This is 1 month course.
1 month course, okay. And they do get certificates from you saying that they've been trained
They
to
have
teach others.
exams, yes, and then they
That's
get
nice.
certificates.
That's nice to know that. So you're helping others to become a yoga teacher as well then.
Yes, I am trying my best to cater whoever wants to learn more. Later, if they want to, go ahead and teach, it's of course their choice. But we always tell them that after the course is done, give 6 months to yourself at least before you teach. So if you do 6 months of self-study and self-exploration of yourself and your sadhana, your practice, then I think you can evolve and grow as a teacher. Some people come with a couple of years of practice also. So it's good for them because they've already practiced for some years and now they just need a formal training and understanding about the subject so that they can, go ahead with teaching.
So is there any strict validation, for the person who's learning to be a trainer, so actually they will be validated to become a trainer, or is it something that, is there any guidelines or something? Is there any accreditation, like, do you have a board or something like that you belong to where you
Right
can?
now, yes, there are two different things today in the current situation. We have an Indian yoga association also, which is doing that, and Ayush is formed for it. So Ayush has its own basic minimum qualification, what you need, and then an exam which you have to go and all of that. But before Ayush was set up, this particular one which I'm talking about, this is Yoga Alliance, which has come from US. So that's what the reason for my conflict was going on inside of me, whether I should or whether I should not. Because this is one reason why yoga went on every doorstep, entire world. But this is also the same reason why it went in a wrong form also.
Right.
Because now people started doing it in few hours of teaching.
Yeah.
So you are telling me that what I learned in like 3 years, 4 years of my course, you are learning in like 300 or 400 hours of your course, which is a drastic difference. And it will always be there until the person gives in 100% from himself or herself. But I think this Yoga Alliance thing, certifications also have norms, like this is the core syllabus and all. But every school has a different kind of a structure for it. There's not very strict rule about it. There's a flexibility in the same limitation.
Right. Okay.
So there is a limitation, but there is flexibility within. So that's why, because of that flexibility, some people have kind of twigged, and made it a bit easier. And now yoga is called as a business all over the globe. People call it like that. That every house there's a yoga teacher. So of course it becomes very challenging. But I'm sure the goodness remains, and all the good teachers around there who are really dedicated, who know, who have learned, who have understood, and who are practicing it, they will definitely be different than the others, those who are just yoga instructors, or those who are just knowing the tip of the iceberg. I mean, they just know the tip of it and they think that they know. But I'm sure one day now, since they know the tip, one day they will go beyond.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very nice to know lot of stuff going on about your world trip, and I'm sure that would have given you a lot of exposure, and also for the people of the world to learn more about yoga. I'm very glad that you've been blessed to be such a part of a great service. Being an ambassador from India, that's a really prestigious thing. And I heard that you also had a diplomat passport for that few
Yes,
months. So
that was a very good experience because I was like just super excited to see the grey passport. I'm like, and I was showing it off to my family and friends also that now I'm like on the grey because I think that's life. You should know how to experience the goodness of everything and not holding on and
so
sticking.
yoga has
That's the
taken.
best part yoga teaches you.
I think yoga has taken you to the really far off step that actually you had expected. Actually, you never expected. Everything came to you by itself. As I think you should be really one of the blessed person that I've seen.
I
Neha.
always feel that there is a
Very nice.
universal blessing which falls upon, and if you don't put in too much of attachment towards things, I think things just flow and they follow.
Yeah.
Somehow it becomes effortless rather than working hard and putting a lot of pressure into it. For me, I think the best part was things just happened effortlessly. The only thing I did was put in my 100% into it.
Exactly. So you do your karma, and the rest will be taken by itself, isn't it? Yeah, that's very true. And yeah, why can't you talk about the workshops and other things that you're running? And also, you can talk about the lockdown period in the last 1 year, how it's affected your journey or your
Yes.
career or whatever you're doing. And probably, I think it's a boon to yoga. I think lockdown has taken over yoga all over the world. Is what I would probably wait to hear those from you as well. So yeah, tell me, Neha.
Yes, indeed, you're very right about the lockdown. But before we come to the lockdown, let me address your question about workshops and retreats. Retreats are a very important part today, I think, which people are really open to and they are really exploring because it also gives you a recreation, a vacation, and a knowledge info based open atmosphere. So yoga can reach to those people, those who are very resistant to it, those who have some notions about it. So that's why when I opened up, there are two kinds of retreats usually I take. One is for people who are already exposed to yoga and they want to grow beyond that, grow more. And one is for people those who really don't know much and they just want to try it out because they were like, okay, everybody is doing it. I also want to have a little touch of yoga in my life because everybody talks about it. So they are very ignorant people or sometimes very, very basic beginner level understanding about yoga because many people even today think meditation is separate, pranayama is separate, yoga is separate. So I mean, they don't know that yoga itself has asanas, has meditation, has pranayam, has yamas, like the basic ethics, morals, your way of living, how you should take things in your mind, how should you feel, how your emotions play a role in your life. So everything is yoga. It's not that you can separate these things. There's a combination. So these retreats are basically connected for people to bring a glimpse of this, that it's a whole thing together. So because they come with a very different mind, so they are confused sometimes, or they have a doubt sometimes, or they have their own notion and understanding. So when they come to these retreats, they're usually in a very beautiful nature-connected place where they have a very sattvic diet. We regulate what they get and when they get. So their routine is regulated. Plus, we don't allow them to connect to the outer world. I mean, mobile phones, laptops, newspapers, and all these things are almost not there for them. So what they do is spend time with themselves and, also with their family or whoever they are coming with, the team there, all the other participants and people. So they learn to connect to people. They learn to connect to themselves. And they also get a good knowledge about the subject. With that, the plus point is they have a beautiful vacation which they were waiting for because they are away from all the stress and trouble of work because we don't let them access their gadgets anymore. So they are in the lap of the nature.
They are not allowed even an hour in a whole day.
Yes, usually we take the phone and we keep it until there's an emergency. They can always come and tell, or there's special request or some kind of things. Obviously, there's a flexibility of it, but we try and tell them that keep all of them in one bag and then we take the bag and we're like, okay, you be there because it's hardly 2 to 3 days. I mean, you can spend that much time on your own. And I think if these gadgets are there, you don't get out of it. They're so powerful to pull you that you will never know that whether it was important or I was just addicted to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that
That's
is one
lovely
thing.
thing.
But for the
Yeah.
people who are already into yoga, the retreats are longer. They are like 1 week, 10 days retreats. And these retreats are a bit strict because we want them to grow and learn. They come there for learning, they come there for self growth, they come there for letting go of a lot of baggages, a lot of pains. If there are therapeutic retreats, then we are very focused on what problem we are dealing with. If it's stress relief, or if it's diabetes, or it's some therapy, which or back pains or something. So whatever the concept, the basic concept of the retreat is, we just focus there. We tell people to strictly follow so that you can get maximum benefits, because it's all up to you. We give up 100%, but if you're taking only a little out of it, then it's your loss. I mean, when you come there, make the most out of that. And these usual 1 week, 10 days retreats are a lot of silence. Like, I really prefer silent retreats. So they are not allowed to talk and interact much with themselves, within themselves. They can come and talk to me, as in the teacher and coordinator, one person who is with me. So they can talk to that person or me. But they're not supposed to talk in between, everything, because I want them to go more introvert. So it's like, introspection is needed. And when you talk, you're actually outward.
Yeah. So if you
So,
close all your five senses, then you know,
yes,
you listen to your mind and body, and you know the inner thing going on, isn't
correct,
it? So you get the connection with the universal energy rather than the outer world. That's very true. So
correct.
how do you conduct these sessions, and is it in a specific location, or is it again a
No,
flexible thing?
any of it, any flexible. Just the requirement is of a nature connected place, which is very, nature connected. It has some open space, some mountains, some good view, and some open space where we can go for mindfulness walk, or they can connect with the nature, where I can let them do some work in the ground. I mean, some gardening, some planting, some, because when they touch that and when they work with that, they connect a lot with those energies around. And they say we are the five senses inside, are also the five elements outside. So we
Yeah.
connect a lot with these five elements.
Yeah.
So I want them to connect to that. So I choose a location which I can have these kind of facilities, plus a good stay, a good place to have good food, so that I can alter the food inside, because they should give me permission to change the food plan. I
Yeah.
don't stick to the plan the hotel or the resort has. We add up. And these days, I think all over the world, we have a lot of holistic and organic based eating, resorts and places.
So is it
There are a
only
lot of them,
within India, or is it outside India also you're doing these retreats?
both the places. So,
Wherever you
any,
have your participants, you're happy to
yes.
do it across. Okay, that's nice
It's
to
like
hear.
very open. I have kept. If you want it there in London, I will be. It will be a pleasure for me to come there, organize a retreat there, and then help people. Because for 20 of them to come somewhere, or for me alone to go somewhere, I think it's something which is more easy and feasible and
Yeah,
practical. And there are sometimes a group of people, like, they really wanted to visit India. So they wanted to come to India.
that's
So
very
that
true.
time it's a different thing, that they really want to come. They have time, they have the finances for it, and they are willing to do. But sometimes people don't want to, or they don't have time, or they don't have enough finances to actually plan it that way. So it's better that I go there and I do this little retreat, and then they can at least get the benefits out of
Yeah,
it.
that's
And
true.
once they get a glimpse, I think it's easier to go deeper into it. So it's like a trailer, you see it, you feel it, and then you want to take the maximum out of it in your life.
That is very true. Yeah.
Yes.
That's very nice. Nice to know about your workshops, which involve a lot of retreats plus holidays, etc. That's nice. I've been longing to do one for a long time, but I can't do that in my current situation. Just needing to wait for that day. It's not easy for someone to
We
just go
all
away
are
for three
waiting for
days.
this lockdown phase to go. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, that's really a very big thing. If somebody can go for a yoga retreat, that would be one of the best holiday that I would think so. Yeah, that would
I
be
think
nice.
it's really nice because you can make both the things work. Your family can connect, and The retreats are designed in certain patterns and structures, so you can always have that particular limitation to it. So it's not like you come with your kids and your spouse, so you have to go for the whole day. We do a lot of kids yoga. Kids need to know things. Kids learn in fun and play. So a lot of water, like in the water, in the pools, we teach them some movements and also some fun, krida. We call it krida yoga. So it's like, in fun, the games which you play. So there are a lot of games which connect to it. So I think it's always about what kind of group is coming and what is the requirement. And then we kind of flexibility is there that it's a tailor-made thing. So it's customized for
so
people.
You do it for the family as well, so people can come with a spouse or kids or with the whole family as well. Okay.
These days we are lacking it, Shubha. I think there are a lot of times when you're not connecting to the family. Kids are not able to spend time with parents. Husband and wife are not able to spend time together. So we think that let them come to this platform and let them connect to each other. When they're connecting to themselves, the connection to the other person will also increase and enhance. It's a vice versa thing,
I think people love to go for shopping or watch TV or watch cinema as a family, and they think that's a get together, but actually it's not, isn't it?
Enough. And especially with kids, it's not at all enough, because kids are very active. They are very curious souls, they want to know things, they want to explore, they want to learn, and you don't have energy and time for it.
We need energy to handle the kids in that pace. Actually, I think for me, cooking together as a family is a get together, and walking together as a family is good thing. And now it's yoga retreat. I never thought I can go there as a family, to be honest. That's really a good thing.
We will definitely plan one soon.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Definitely. If it's a family thing, I would really happy to do, because leaving the family and coming for a retreat for 3 days is not going to happen.
It's all kinds of levels mixed together, so we connect them in that same level. I mean, then I will not give you an intensive extended course on yoga, philosophy, or spirituality. Then I will bring it down to a certain level which your husband can understand and follow. Like, he would be very happy to learn about stress management. So we will put one thing into the retreat which will talk about it, so that he can handle this outside. We will keep a kids column, that only the kids can play with fun, doing some yoga asanas with the parents. So you can bond with the child. And then the kids are doing that as a fun. It's not like a forced class which parents are telling, do yoga, it's good for you. So kids are like, I don't want to do it, it's too boring for me. Because they don't find interest in it. But when it comes in this way, in a different atmosphere, in a place where they like and they love. No, it's
That's
really
so
different to
interesting.
connect.
Thanks for elaborating that. I never thought it would have so much fun element as well. That's really nice to know. So, how has been the Corona era in the past 1 year? Can you go back to that $1 million question?
I think it has two sides of the coin. There's a lot of trouble which has come into the field, and a lot of yoga teachers, trainers, and others also. A lot of people have been impacted and hit by this wave which had come last year. And people really went jobless, workless. I mean, there's nothing to do. And they had a lot of trouble. I heard it a lot around me. Fortunately, again, I will tell as a blessing, there's Krishna's hand on my head, I feel. Somehow he kind of takes away the eases up the ways. I can't say he takes away, because there are a lot of things which we have to take our own. But he eases us our path, by just being there. And I believe in that fact that if you are connected and your initiation, your intention is there to, keep doing what you do, and you love, like for me, I love what I do. So I started this teaching online much before Corona had come. So in 2018, when I came to India, there were a couple of my old students who really wanted me to take their classes. And I was not in Bangalore, but in Bangalore, they were missing me. So these students, they really pinged me and they're like, no, Neha, we want to do. And I started on WhatsApp video call. So we did a WhatsApp video call, and once or twice in a week, they would take a session with me, and then they would practice on their own. And that was just few of them. I mean, just a handful of sessions in a whole month I was taking, because I was traveling and I was doing a lot of other things. So I couldn't commit so much to that. But when this corona came, I remember very nicely, I was doing a teacher's training thing in Rishikesh. I was in Rishikesh. And this came in February. I was there in February end. I just had to rush to Haridwar, where my parents were there. So in March, I was completely in Haridwar. And I took that time because everybody thought it would go. It's just momentary, like few weeks or something. And I was like, okay, so it will go. But April came and I was like, oh my God, it's not going now. It's high time I have to plan and think something. The first thing I did is to get used to my MacBook, which I was really not much getting acquainted with. So I had to spend a lot of hours with learning technology and, revising things and getting used to it, plus understanding the portals. So finally, I found Zoom to be a very easy and good way to connect. And then April onwards, I started online.
Right.
I did my free sessions, a lot of free like small intro sessions for people to understand and to connect, because there were a lot of people those who thought that online yoga is not possible. How can yoga be online? It's physical movements. If we are doing wrong and this, and even I had a little thoughts in my head, how would I be able to do it? Again, whenever you have a change, you're not sure about it. So until you dive in, you would not know it. So I had to take a call that, okay, I have done a few video things, but the best part was my prior experience to it and my students motivating me that, ma'am, it is really good. We love it and you are doing good. I mean, this online can go really well. So that motivation was for me good enough for try on new people, because these people were already my students. So they knew me. They knew my way of teaching. They knew the practices. But a new person who doesn't know me, it gets a bit difficult for them to connect. But that happened smoothly. I put in my entire, effort into it, and I'm sure people really helped me who were new, and we were learning through it. So by the time Yoga Day came, June last year, I had a very beautiful webinar which had almost 600 to 700 people joined in.
Wow, that's a huge
number. So yeah, all over the world, I had kept it open for everyone, and I was very happy that so many people joined in. And we had a very beautiful webinar on yoga, mindfulness, meditation. And then slowly I started going into other forums, because they had a lot of webinars for awareness, and yoga really was needed at that time because people were suffering from mental, emotional, and physical trouble. And yoga is one thing which takes care of all of them.
That's very true. So, yeah, in the lockdown, we cannot go out or do anything. Everything is closed. Gym is closed. All the leisure activities are closed. So yoga is the only thing that you can do in your own space within the home to keep us all, mentally safe, isn't it, and peaceful. Yeah.
And not only that, I think it was also one thing which people were facing challenges is they were all stuck at one place, which they were not used to it. So they had a lot of mental and emotional troubles.
True, very true. Yeah.
And they were really going in stress. Like I had a lot of counseling sessions. I'm still taking them though now. One-on-one sessions I started with people, not teaching them much of yoga, but teaching them the basic ways of life and dealing with relationships, dealing with people, dealing with their own insecurities and fears. Yeah. Because we are developing them a lot when we are sitting with our own selves inside a room. Yeah. So it's very depressing. If you don't create the energy, you are going to get depressed very shortly.
That is true, yeah.
All of this started, and then I started some group classes of beginners yoga, and then some one-on-one yoga sessions, some couple yoga because husband and wife doing yoga together. Then, it just went on, and from one person, it just spread to other. And so became very busy. In fact, there was a time I was like more busier than I was before. I can say very
in your case, then it's a thanks to COVID, which highlighted yoga as the critical part of our lifestyle, and everybody can do such with more ease at home, anytime, without any gadgets or without any instruments. I love that part of yoga. You don't need anybody
That's
or
fair.
anywhere any instrument. You can just do it anywhere, anytime, which is really a boon. So I guess
True.
COVID plays a happy role in some of the people, at
I
least I would say, to
Yeah, but
some
I would
extent.
not put it in this way. I would say it's an irony. It's a sad part, that we all had to made realize and understand this importance by such a drastic and devastating state.
Yeah,
Like today, at this point of time, we are still in lockdown again. This is the second wave which has
yeah,
hit India, and this time it was really harder than last time. We did a very good job last year by taking care of things in very right time. I mean, we were really good. But this time, somehow, due to some reasons, it has really gone a bit overboard. But I think still it's all in control. I mean, control in the sense we can still handle it. But that's the sad part, that whenever these troubles come, then we go for the rescue and the remedy. I mean, we had it all the way through with us, and we were all teachers ready to share, ready to give. And when it was the right time, it was not chosen. But when you really suffer, it's very difficult, to see the students also. Like I know so many people now with me. There are a lot of students who are actually suffering from problems. So I think post COVID also there's a different kind of things we give them. And there are COVID patients who are taking meditation and yoga nidra sessions, who I'm giving only pranayam and relaxation. I'm just trying to relax them because they're so much in trauma, they're so much in pain, they're so much in fear.
oh dear.
There's a lot of fear inside.
Yeah, I
And
think people don't understand that yoga is just about relaxing. So if you can't do asana, that's still fine. You need that pranayama and relaxation techniques if you're in a deep stress or a fear, isn't
very
it? So that's another part of that you have highlighted it very, very nice. Thanks, Neha. Yeah.
And then recently in MP, we have started the government, I mean the Chief Minister of MP, he has started a program called Yog Senido, which is of all the yoga teachers who have come together to give free service to only the COVID patients. So they
Wow.
have the list, the government has the list of people those who are suffering. So we are given the list, and then we call them, we fix up a time, and we teach them yoga. So the
Wow.
protocol has come again. So I have also opted for this, thing that I want to do something, at least what best you can do at this time.
Lovely.
And of course, it's my profession, it's my bread and butter. So there's a lot of other places I am charging and taking money. But I always have that in my heart, and I've always been doing that you have incoming happening. You should also have certain place where you can go selflessly and do that little karma yoga from your own, whatever little you can do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a very personal choice. And these things are really making people more aware of this yoga knowledge, not only knowledge, but they are accepting it as a way of life now. They have understood that breathing is a key.
Yeah.
And it is not just your normal, regular breathing which you're doing. It has to be learned. It has to be slowed down.
Yeah.
It has to be controlled in a pattern
Yeah.
which can make you feel more relaxed and more calm.
That's
So if
very
you can
nice.
work on your breath, you can actually work on your emotions. If you can work on your breath, you can work on your stress levels. And if you can work on these three, then you can definitely work on your health, because wellness is all together. It's not just your physical fitness. It's also how healthy you are with your mind, how healthy you are, in your emotions.
That's very well
Plus,
said.
it just helps you to nurture that good atmosphere in the family. Because if everybody in the family is low and down, like there's a lot of times in my family we had corona hit. I mean, even my dad went to hospital and he was in ICU for 11 days, and it was a very challenging and a difficult time. But throughout that time, I kept taking my classes. I didn't stop. Plus, I kept counseling and taking care of my family members amongst, and we as a family took care of it. Just because we could hold on with positive thinking, with a lot of hope towards the future, which
Very
is
well
after
said.
the
Yeah. I think
after
that's
the
the
COVID.
most important thing. Positive thoughts. Our thoughts will
But
lead our life, is what I also realize. If you think negative, that's what is going to happen. Whereas if you think positive and hope for the best, I think definitely it happens. I think we can.
Now, if you see around, Corona as a virus is not killing many.
It's just the fear.
The fear of Corona is killing more than that.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Yeah, that's
So
true.
I am just trying my best, and right now I'm very glad that I'm a part of this group of people around the globe who are making that little extra help. So there are a lot of warriors fighting, against Corona in the hospital, in the other, they're really helping people so much. And on the back hand, if I say people like us, we are also trying our bit that people are positive, they are healthy, they do certain things, they think certain patterns and things, and they don't think negative or they don't talk. I have stopped TV and everything in my house. There's no TV watching going on from almost I don't know how many. I think more than a year now. We don't, because the news is there, the people talking on phone, because I don't want my mom to get, because she has a very good tendency of getting influenced
Also, I have seen that the media enhances the problem a bit more than the normal, is what I have noticed. One of my friend, he's a doctor, and he got COVID, and he told his parents back in hometown, in India, that I'm fine. It's a little bit tired, and I'll be hopefully fine. So the parents were quite relaxed, and they took it easy. But the person who took the video of the whole entire process and journey, he just highlighted that in an entirely different way, with an entire different tone. Oh my gosh, with the music and everything, that made really, really panicking video. And after sharing that video with everybody, their parents called, you said nothing happened, you are fine. What is this going on in this video? He just said, ignore that video, mom. That's just how the media works. And I was like, because he's one of my close friends, and I know exactly what happened. And what you said, I stopped watching television on the second day of Corona, because first day I watched the television, I was so much panicking, fearing, what is this? My husband is a doctor. I didn't want him to go to work at all. Yeah, I said, why do we have so much money? Why do you want to go and work at this time? We just can't take a break, and he said, no, you can't just do that. Now this is a time where people need us, and we have to do it. Think positive. First, you have to stop watching telly, okay? He said, I just followed it very religiously. I never watched telly after that. People talk here and there, I just grasp a little bit, but that's okay. That's not going to injure your mind. But the day I watched the telly, oh my God, the first day, I never slept. And even I had a little bit congestion, not even cough or cold. I just had a congestion. And I was like, oh, would that be a corona? No.
But it's not your story. It's the story of every house. So I'm trying a lot that I tell people that in the WhatsApp groups.
Well done. Thanks, Neha. Thanks for your great service, and you've really opened up the lot of secrets actually in today's session. I'm really glad that, it's really, really important for people to understand a lot of things that you've given. You have taken the journey so much elaborately, very beautifully written. It should have been coming out as a textbook. Unfortunately, we have made it as fortunately, actually, we've made it as a video, which is easy to hear more than to read as well. So I'm hoping that the listeners would be benefiting quite a lot. But we have lots to hear from you. I think you're very young, but you have a lot more than what I was expecting in this video. And I think this 1 hour is not sufficient for us to get the information from you. I think we need to do a couple of more other episodes to have more of your experience in terms of curing diabetes, stress, etc. Your therapy-based, yogas, etc. and everything. So I think we will be looking forward to get your another slot or time to spend with us. Do you want to tell anything before we wind up today, Neha, to the viewers?
Yes, I think I just want to tell people that yoga is a way of life. Everybody knows this as a quotation, but I want people to experience it. Before saying no to it, try it out. Because there's a lot which you haven't understood your own self. Maybe it has come from a wrong way or a wrong person or it has not come up in the right way to you. And today it is the need, it is a necessity. It's not a luxury anymore, it's not a hobby anymore that you can choose that, okay, should I do yoga or I should do this. It is something which should be a part of each individual's life, especially youngsters. If there are young kids, who are around and who are listening to me through this YouTube channel, I would really want them to try the yogic approach towards things. When you learn at a younger age, you really can handle things much better in life. I give a lot of credit to yoga for my life, what I am today and how I am. How easily in these so many phases of my life, which came up with a lot of ups and downs, it didn't shatter me, it didn't break me, it didn't let me fall. And the only reason is yoga being a base and your family support, of course. That's a very big important aspect. But if you have this way of thinking, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of living, it's a way of feeling, because you get more sensitive. You feel that yogis are detached. It is true. There are certain moments where I also got that message from my family that, you don't feel it so much. You are, you don't attach so much into the, situations and feelings. But I always understand it in this way, that going into the aspect of emotions and situations, if you become a victim yourself, you will never be able to come with a solution. You have to get out of the problem, see it like a third person, and then get a solution. And how this came to me, this came through yoga. So, there are a lot of these little things which teaches you how to live a life which is happy, which is healthy. And I think that's one of the titles of my TED Talks. I would really be happy if people watch the TEDx talk of mine, which is Happiness, Our World Within. So I'm sure a lot of people will understand what actually happiness is and what comes through me. Just because I filled my life with that, I want that everyone should get that little smile on their face, which they deserve. Each one of them deserve to be happy, deserve to be loved, but they're all searching it in the wrong place.
That's very
so if they come to the right place, I'm sure they'll get it, and they'll get it so much. There's ample for everyone. There's abundance.
Lovely. Thanks for touching our heart today with yoga, Neha. We are very much touched with your speech, and stay blessed. And thank you so much for your time today, sharing with all our viewers in this forum. I hope we passed a very beautiful message. Even if you don't know or like yoga, just try it out, and let's all try to do it. Thank you so much, Neha.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. I loved every bit of this talk, and I want to share something really, coming out of my heart right now. Telling you the entire story. After a long time, I could go recap. I went back. So it has really brought so much, insight, that I think in the entire conversation with you, you will see I was overwhelmed.
I could see that.
Throughout the time overwhelmed, because I was going back and I was seeing the journey, and I feel so blessed.
And proud.
So thanks to you that you brought this amazing nectar of happiness. It's like a powerhouse of it, which I could feel today. And I'm so glad I could share my life story to everyone, around. And I would be very happy and glad to help, to share and to spread this little smile and little healthy living to anybody who is really looking out for it.
Thank you so much, Neha. Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll keep our viewers posted in the description box. If anybody would like to know a bit more about Neha, please visit her website, and please touch base with her to get the initial conversation started. And I hope even if we can inspire one person out of this entire video, I would be so much glad for making out and spending this time to make out this video. Thank you so much, viewers. And Neha. See you.
Thanks.
See you in another episode. Thanks for those who have already subscribed to our channel, Master the Life. For those who have not subscribed to our channel, please click on the subscribe button in the center of this video so you could get more updates. On the left hand side, you could see the video to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and on your right hand side, you could see the playlist to Healthy Eating Habits. So yes, please stay tuned for more videos. Until then, have a very good, happy and a healthy life. Bye.